What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for being here. Monday, so no system recap, no minor league action. Recording this during the Twins game on a cooler and wet night at Target Field, a quiet night at Target Field. They're playing the Mets. But some news and notes before that game. Carlos Correa back in the lineup. He had the day off on Sunday and hit fifth, the lowest he's been in the lineup all year. Ty France won the AL Player of the Week. Charlie Soto won the Midwest League Pitcher of the Week, and Scott Blewett was claimed off waivers by Baltimore, so you felt like he was only going to come back so many times when you kept casting him out on waivers that he'd stick around, and Baltimore did claim him. You know, life of the mop-up man type reliever. He'll probably be back on waivers before too long, unfortunately. And he's pitched well, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. In this Twins 5 I'm recording, there's going to be 5 fun facts from this zine that I made. Check that out. We'll swing back to that in just a sec. But first, a bonus 5. We're going to give a Twins 5 and a bonus 5 as we're just going to talk about some minor league stats so far, year-to-date stats. Travis Adams for St. Paul, guy who's kind of a surprise add to the 40-man roster this winter. 3.86 ERA, 1.18 whip, 9 strikeouts in 9 1/3 innings. He's kind of been flying under the radar because he's pitching out of relief. And I just don't talk about guys, even starters throwing out of relief, don't dedicate that much attention to compared to the starters. So just kind of wanted to say he's pitching well in AAA. Alex Speas. This is a guy who's pitched a handful of games for Texas and Houston. He struck out 6 of the 13 batters he's faced for the Saints and topped out at 99.5 miles per hour. So he's only had 2 appearances, so it's very early, and he was really wild in spring. This is a guy that's been the big issue with him. He can't throw strikes. If the Twins can figure out something to get this guy to have any kind of command, he could be an interesting arm to keep an eye on for the bullpen. Tanner Schobel, former second-round pick. He's in Wichita, back in Wichita. He's off to a great start. 364 with a 436 OBP and a 606 slugging. Spencer Bengard, also off to a great start of Cedar Rapids. This is a dude that had a really good year last year. He's also pitching out of the bullpen, but he pitches in longer outings than your typical bullpen arm. Kind of an under-radar guy because he doesn't have a crazy eye-popping velo or stuff, but a 2.38 ERA, 0.88 whip, and 15 strikeouts in 11 1/3 innings for Spencer Bengard. And then Byron Chiriot for Fort Myers. He had a great start to last year and then was pretty terrible every other month. He's doing it again, maybe. A 526 OBP in his first 38 plate appearances, 14 walks in his first 8 games for Byron Chiriot, who's a center fielder, speedy leadoff guy type. So that's a wonderful sign from him. Moving on over again. All of these 5 facts that we're going to talk about, fun facts, are in the latest issue of the zine. It is a PDF, $2 only, no shipping, since it's a PDF, but you can print it out. It was 8.5 by 11 is what this was built on. So you can just print it out and, not have to change any crazy settings or anything. That's what I've done here, and you can see it's pretty substantial. I believe this came to 23 pages. So head on over to my Ko-fi page to check that out if you're interested. Going to take some of these facts right from this document, and this one is from an article. Actually, the first couple are from an article that I wrote called Twins Minor League System 101, where I talked about 101 different minor leaguers kind of in groups of players. So check that out. But these are the guys looking around at, your Baseball America, MLB Pipeline, Baseball Prospectus, Aaron Gleeman's list, and just kind of taking a look around. These are the 5 guys I'm high on. I did a dedicated video on this last year, I think. But Charlie Soto at number 4. This is higher on. There may be some places that are as high as me, but Eduardo Beltre, I don't think you'll find anybody else who has him as a top 10 guy yet. Danny De Andrade, who was in this group last year, I'm sticking with him to a degree. He's fallen down my list some, but I'm sticking with him. He's off to a slow start again, but I've seen a lot from him that I've liked. Adrian Bajorquez, who's a young right-handed pitcher. We saw him for the Mighty Muscles last year, but he hasn't joined them yet. Hopefully we'll see him on that club before too long. And then Ty Langenberg, who also had not a great first start of the year. So he's off to a slower start too. Those guys got to prove me right. But that number to the left is my prospect ranking for each of those guys. And my top 50 list for preseason is included in that zine. Number 2, AAA games played prior to their MLB debut. I called this one out in a segment where I was talking about Emmanuel Rodriguez and Luke Keeschel. It kind of made the point, these guys are in AAA and they're fresh in AAA. Some people kind of have a notion that there's some kind of a set time that you need in AAA before you reach the big leagues. And at least for the Minnesota Twins, that has not been very long. Edouard Julien only played 9 games with the Saints before debuting. Royce Lewis, 24 in AAA. Matt Wallner, 49. Brooks Lee, 58. And Austin Martin, 59 games in AAA prior to debuting. Now, these guys didn't debut and then stick in the big leagues. So this is just prior to their major league debut. Maybe that was a short stint and they went back down and played a bunch more. Matt Wallner, for example, was just back in AAA last year. So I think we could see Emmanuel Rodriguez or Luke Keeschel kind of be in a similar spot to where it might not be that long before they make their debut, but it probably is going to be a little bit longer before they actually click and really cling to a MLB roster spot. So they might be up and down a bit. That's not a shot at those guys. They're both very young and relatively inexperienced. Number 3, system soft spots. This was actually a full article that I have in here dedicated to this notion. The ones I identified were left-handed pitching, catching, and then the international market. The Twins really have not done well in the international market. They have very little to show for that, but they've made some pretty big changes of late that haven't quite been around in play long enough to see fruit at the major league or even in the upper minors. And then loud tools, I put. The Twins in general seem to be pretty accepting of guys who don't come to them with like a big velo or a really big wipeout pitch. And they accept a lot of pitchability and think they can use that as a building block. Kind of similarly to that, hitting-wise, the Twins don't really go after especially premium athlete guys. Yeah, they might be drafting shortstops, but those are guys who are expected to move off the position. They seem just in general on both sides to be drafting baseball players first, and then who they think they can kind of build up from there, or at least they have a high floor. And they're not really going after super loud tools, and that's not something you can develop. That's something you do have to focus on. Now, is that some kind of big problem that needs to be addressed? Probably not, because they've actually been pretty successful in the draft, especially identifying players later in the draft. But it is something that they are behind on to some orgs, I would say, in that degree. And it's not like they don't have toolsy guys. Walker Jenkins is a tool shed. But just an opinion of mine. Number 4, minor league salaries. In this article, another article in this was about minor league lifestyle, what their home life is like, what their travel life is like, and that includes the minimum annual salaries for each level from last season. Now, these are way up from pre-2024, before they had a collective bargaining, before they were a union in the minors. So, but, just in case you're wondering, a lot of people don't know this. It's not talked about a ton, so that's something I touched on in, again, that article in the zine. And then this is more of just a fun fact. The average age by level, hitters versus pitchers, and these are the leagues that the Twins are in, so it's not across the entire level, but I would imagine if we looked at all of AAA, let's say, we would get a pretty similar look. Just to put this into kind of some perspective, I was thinking Jose Miranda, man, this guy's in his age 26 season. He hasn't put it together yet. When's it going to happen? Is it ever going to happen? And kind of puts it in perspective that's league average for AAA. There's guys, Matt Mervis, to throw somebody out, who's breaking out right now for the Marlins, is 26. So, and he's a rookie. Just aside from that Miranda thing, that was after the fact, but just kind of wanted to show how the average ages look across those levels. So thanks for checking this one out. Again, check out the zine, $2 over at my Ko-fi shop, available as a PDF. I had fun making it. It was kind of a thing that I scrambled to get done to go on that Duluth trip I talked about. And then I didn't have internet there, so I wasn't able to promote it or talk about it. So this is a video I've been meaning to make for a while, kind of give you an idea of what kind of stuff's covered in there. So thank you so much. If you've already checked that out, especially thank you. But thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think. We'll talk again soon.